In this video, we're going to go over how to set goals that don't suck. And in order to do that, we're going to talk about 4 common mistakes that most people make when setting goals. Plus, we'll go over some practical examples on how I'm using this approach to set my goals for 2025. Mistake number 1 is that people don't match their goals to their values. So for me, this year is about prioritizing my kids, my schoolwork with the master's in sports psychology, as well as exploring this YouTube channel, podcast, and some other business opportunities. Plus, I want to focus on being creative. But we'll get to a little bit more of that later. The important thing to ask yourself when you're trying to figure out what your values are and if your goals are in alignment with them is, what kind of person do you want to be? It's a pretty simple question, but sometimes it's hard to answer. All right, mistake number 2 is that most people don't match their goals with their long-term vision. And what I mean by that is that results aren't guaranteed. So we spend most of the time doing the daily process, the daily actions that lead up to the goals. And if you are not okay with spending your time doing those daily things and you don't actually really enjoy doing all of that, then it's going to be a long, kind of miserable road on the way there. Plus, most of us are really good at overestimating what we can do in 3 months and underestimating what we can do in 3 years. Just assume that your goal is going to take 10 times longer than you think it is to achieve. And ask yourself, is this how I want to spend my time? If the answer is yes, fantastic. You're on your way to a great goal. Mistake number 3 is misunderstanding our motivation. For goals, there are 2 basic frameworks. We have our ego-oriented goals and our task-oriented goals. For our ego-oriented goals, we are mostly concerned with comparison. How do we stack up against other people? And while these are fun and things like maybe winning a state championship or making the team or qualifying for this or that, we also have very little control over the actual outcome. That being said, it's not all bad to have an ego-oriented goal, because outcomes do unlock opportunities. We live in an outcome and performance-based society, so it's not necessarily wrong to have that kind of a goal. We just need to understand that that's part of our motivation. Task-oriented goals are more about executing that daily process, doing our best, right? What is it that we can do on the road to self-improvement, regardless of how we're stacking up against other people. So for task-oriented goals, we actually have a lot of control over the outcome, which is great because we might feel kind of far away from an ego-oriented goal. Let's say we're kind of hit a rough patch, then we can use those task-oriented goals to sort of fill in those gaps. And ultimately, they lead to a little bit more of intrinsic motivation that we can sustain for kind of a longer period of time. And lastly, mistake number 4 is that we both over and underemphasize our protocols. So when we underemphasize our protocols, it's kind of like we're too focused on how close or how far away we are from the actual goal, rather than what do we need to do, what are those steps that we need to take in order to go about achieving it. Which is also another reason why task-oriented goals are maybe a little bit stronger or easier to follow through on than an ego-oriented goal. That being said, we can also overemphasize our protocol. And what I mean by that is we can sort of romanticize it and become too attached to our approach or what we're doing in training to actually go about trying to achieve our goal and sort of forget what the purpose is of what we're doing. So a common way that distance runners or endurance athletes do this is by focusing too much on trying to hit weekly mileage or weekly volume, rather than understanding if they are improving, right? How is their performance actually going? What is the purpose of the training? Is it to hit 100 miles a week or hit a 15-hour training block? Or is it to go faster in the race? So ultimately, we want to focus on creating sort of our own little scientific system of hypothesizing, testing via executing our training, kind of focusing on those specific metrics that we want every maybe 6 to 12 weeks, and then retesting and seeing how are we making improvements? Are we making improvements? Where do we need to go from here? Maybe we change our approach a lot, maybe we change it a little, maybe we don't change it at all. The key is to understand what those metrics are and then put it in your system to try to reevaluate and give yourself that feedback in order to make improvements and make strive towards that ultimate goal. So with a decrease in time allotted for training this year, I need to try to figure out exactly what type of goal I want to go after. So let's look at a couple different options. No. Nah. So with all that in mind, let's dive into my 2025 goals. So as far as my values and vision go, like I said, this year is going to be more focused a little bit on, everything else outside of training, basically. So instead of trying to cram in a big Ironman or several Ironmans this year, I'm just going to focus on being consistent and building up towards a fast marathon in 2027. While I could maybe squeak out a marathon this year, I'm just going to try to practice what I preach here and say this goal is going to take 3 years instead of 3 to 6 months to train for. So that's priority numero uno. One of the hard things about goal setting is that you put these kind of ethereal things out there, and it's a lot simpler if you can just put a number down and see how close you are to it. So with that in mind, I'm going to try to be consistent by running 2,000 miles, which is roughly 40 miles a week. So at different stages of the year, I'll just kind of check back in and see about how close I am or how far away I am from this goal. But I also don't want to just run and then not get any faster. So I want to see, how fast can I get? Not necessarily totally comparing myself to how fast I was in college, although that's sort of in the back of my mind. One of those ego-oriented goals. So, but really just like a 4:30 mile would be great, because just like it says at the start of Once a Runner, how did you know I ran a 4:30 mile in high school? Everyone ran a 4:30 mile in high school. So, sub 4:30 mile is goal number 2. I also have a goal for this YouTube channel, which is to just be creative and contribute. And by contribute, I mean either educate or entertain, or hopefully both, a little bit of both at the same time, even if it's just you guys laughing at me being a little bit ridiculous. With that, I want to try to publish 26 YouTube videos, as well as be monetized, which is 4,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers. Those are both kind of ego-oriented goals, right? I don't have any control hardly over if you guys like this video enough or not to hit a subscribe button or keep watching. With that being said, it does kind of fit my vision of fatherhood and being a better parent, because if I'm monetized, then hopefully I can get an extra $5 or so a month, and then maybe my kids can afford college one day. Or I can afford the goal that I want to share with you at the end of this video. So just to give you kind of a heads up on maybe what's coming down the pipeline, be just testing a lot of different stuff. Kind of like I said, having that system of identifying what's working and what's not, and sometimes you just gotta try stuff and be a little bit curious about where it's going. And so doing a little bit more blood work to sort of see how that dietary changes or supplementation is adjusting from, a testosterone or ferritin level, or doing a continuous glucose monitor for a couple days just to see what the impact of eating the way that I eat actually does on my glucose, or just testing out this NICS sweat analyzer, testing lactate, or testing out different heart rate monitors. Basically a lot of different testing coming throughout the year, understanding what technologies are important and maybe not important. I have signed a contract with myself, run 2,000 miles, run under a 4:30 mile, publish 26 YouTube videos, which I'm already at 3, and then get 4,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers. Subscribers is kind of a hard word to say. Subscribers. If I can do all those things, then I promise myself that I will buy a... Wait, that's not right. Sauna. I will buy a sauna. This is just a ornament that I got off Etsy for like $5 to remind myself of the ultimate goal in life, which is to be a good dad and to buy a sauna. It's something that I've wanted for a super long time, and while I could sell my bike or 2 bikes to do this, you know what, and I might have to do that, I just kind of wanted to make a fun game out of it. And while intrinsic motivation is certainly a really powerful thing, sometimes the right extrinsic motivation can really work magic. So, that is the goal for this year. All of those different things, and I'm excited to see if I can do it. I hope you guys subscribe and continue watching, because I've got a lot of fun stuff in the pipeline. Until next time, happy trading.